Hello and what is going on, lovely people of the internet? It is Hootmoney here with another video for you guys today. So a recent report came out where BBIG had 260% short interest. It was on TD Ameritrade, Webull, I believe E-Trade, as well as there's a few other that I'm forgetting as well, but they all said that BBIG had 260% short interest. So I dived a bit deeper into these claims and I decided to find out for myself, is this real? Is it actually 260% short interest? Now, before we get into that, I'd like you guys to keep in mind that short interest percentage alone of free float should not be a huge indicator of a short squeeze. However, 260% is definitely a big figure, but you should be looking at that. You should be looking at the total short interest and compare that to the daily volume, and then that could actually be an indicator of a short squeeze. Now, today, what's going on is an argument not over the short interest number. So the short interest number is the exact same, but it is basically a debate over the free float of BBIG, and people are thinking that the free float is much smaller than it was previously listed at. It's being listed at around a 50 million share float, but people believe that it's much smaller at about 9 million shares. And if it's at 9 million shares, obviously compared to 50 million shares, the short interest percentage of free float will be a lot higher if the free float is a lot smaller. So I'm diving into these claims and picking apart exactly what is going on today. So we can see the Reddit post right here. I solved it, ladies and gents. Short interest 260%. By the way, I'm not going to be doing an analysis on the stock. If you guys wanted to see my last analysis on this stock, click that link right above. I'm putting a card on the screen right now for my last analysis where we go over where exactly I see BBIG. I am bullish coming into this week, and I believe there should be a run up to that Tide spinoff of October 15th. So in the next 2 weeks, we should be seeing some positive momentum in BBIG. Hopefully, I can't promise the future, but I do think that there will be momentum building into October 15th, and then perhaps October 15th might be a sell the news event. But you have to look at this, guys. So 97 million shares is the total amount of shares outstanding for BBIG. Now, he says that Hudson Bay has 77 million shares. This is where it gets a little fishy. This is what we're going to be diving deeper into. Paul Yang has 5.5 million shares. The total executive officers and directors have 6 million shares. So if we take our handy dandy calculator, we take about 97 million. Now we're just going to be doing estimates here. We subtract 77 and then we subtract 5.5. Then we subtract 6.1. We get a float of about 8.4 million shares. Now, if we take a look at the short interest, it was reported on September 24th to be 21.34. So we go back to our handy dandy calculator. We do 21.34. We divide that by 8.4. And we get a short interest percentage of free float. Yes, we were doing estimates. It was around 2.54 or 2.6 if you round it up. If we actually rounded up those numbers and we did it to the full numbers, it would have been closer to 2.6. Now, if you see on TD Ameritrade, they have it at 260% right here, and on other websites as well, Webull, they have the exact same thing, 260.11% short interest. Now, this is where it gets confusing, all right? So we have to look at Hudson Bay Master Limited Fund, blah, blah, blah. They have been a huge VC for BBIG and have given a lot of money to BBIG. And it gets really confusing because a lot of this shares outstanding are tied to warrants, right? And you can see right here, the percentage of shares outstanding is only 9.99%. 77 million divided by 97 million is much higher than that, right? If we just do 77 divided by 97, that's about 80%. And right here it says 9%. So we have to go into the footnotes right here, and this is what he did not cover in this post right here. If you read in the footnotes, it says includes 8.9 million shares of outstanding stock. So that alone is almost that 10% figure right there that we were looking at. And then 24 million shares right here is issuable upon exercise of June 21 Hudson Bay incentive warrants. Another 20 million shares are executable among August 2021 Series 8 warrants. 2 million, more warrants, blah, blah, blah. This is where it gets juicy. So it says, however, pursuant to terms of aforementioned warrants, Hudson Bay Master whatever may not exercise such warrants. They may not exercise such warrants to the extent, but only to the extent. This is where it gets so confusing for me. All this legal jargon that I don't really care for. Such selling stockholder or any of its affiliates would beneficially own upon such conversion or exercise number of shares of our common stock, which would exceed 9.9% of the outstanding shares of common stock in the company. So even though their common stock and warrants would basically give them 77 million shares, if all of those warrants were exercised, they're not allowed to exceed 9.9% ownership of the entire company. So with them already having 8.9 million shares outstanding, so if we just take 8.9 divided by 97, which is the total amount of shares, that's already at around 9%, and they're only allowed to own 9%, so they can only really exercise about 1 million of those warrants. All right, so I put together a quick spreadsheet basically using this analysis that we saw here on the BBIG Reddit page, but also I put together one where we used Hudson Bay only getting 9.99% of the total shares outstanding to estimate a new short interest as well. So let's just quickly compare the analysis. So the shares outstanding, 97 million. Hudson Bay, 77 million here. You subtract that from the 97 million. You subtract 5.5 as well, and then 6.1. You get an estimated float, if you subtract all of those, of about 8.1 million shares. And then the estimated short interest is simply the shares that are sold short divided by the estimated float. So the short interest percentage of free float. Then you get the 260% figure that you saw here on TD Ameritrade and on other places. But if you do take into consideration the 9.99% that Hudson Bay is limited to owning, it paints a little bit of a different picture. As you guys can see, we have 97 million again shares outstanding, about 9.7 million for Hudson Bay, 5.5 for Paul Yang, and then 6.1 for executives, and that makes a much larger float at about 76 million, which gives us an estimated short interest percentage of free float of about 28%, which is much closer to what the reported number was here at 25%. So it is a bit confusing, especially when warrants do come into play. I personally don't understand the whole warrant situation myself, so I'd be careful. There is uncertainty, and like I said, I don't fully understand the situation myself, and I hope I explained it to you as best as possible, but I do not believe that there is a 260% short interest on BBIG. It just doesn't really add up, especially because Hudson Bay is only allowed to own 10% of the company. There's no shot that they're going to be owning 80% of the company anytime soon. And I guess the most confusing part is the fact that they have all of these warrants outstanding, which means they're entitled to all of this stock, but they aren't entitled to it at the same time by only being allowed to own 10%. So what happens to all of those extra warrants? Are those allowed to be publicly traded on the stock market? I guess that's where the uncertainty really does come into play. Like, I don't know if those 70 million shares are allowed to be traded or if they have to be locked up for whatever reason, considering they're only allowed to exercise about 1 million of them. It's just tough to know where exactly those shares are. That's all I got for the video. I hope you guys have learned something today, but this is proof that you shouldn't just see a Reddit post that has awards and upvotes and take that for face value. I do not believe BBIG is sitting at 260% short interest. Yes, the exchanges list that, but you really have to dig into the SEC documents and the fine print to really understand what's going on, and I don't fully understand what's going on. And if the SPRT and GREE merger has anything into play, dilution is something that definitely happens, that goes under the radar in these plays. Not all information is widespread, so be careful with your investments. I do see a bullish bounce coming in BBIG just based off of momentum alone, but with the days to cover at 0.5 and the tons of volume being traded on BBIG, I'm not going to take a short squeeze as the main catalyst in this stock. And like I said before, momentum leading up to the Tide spinoff is likely going to be what drives this price up, not a short squeeze. Anyways, that's about it. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel for more, and hit that bell down below. Definitely like the video if you guys learned something today. It's very highly appreciative. Also, if you guys would like to check out Public, it's a stock brokerage on your phone. Very easy to use. They don't sell your trading data or payment for order flow like Robinhood, and they're giving up to $70 in free stock just for signing up. So check that out using the links below. And that's about it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Peace.